Hello again and welcome. Michael Pizzolla here. I'd like to welcome you to this edition of the Value Capping Rant. In this edition, we're going to talk about the 2019 Arkansas Derby to be run at Oaklawn Park and the Lexington Stakes to be run at Keeneland. Very quickly, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Pizzolla. I am the author of the best-selling handicapping book, Handicapping Magic, co-author of the classic Pace Makes the Race. I am the creator of the original online racing forum in its current iteration, Post Time Daily 2.0. You can find out more about it at posttimedaily.com. I am the designer of the Black Magic family of handicapping software. The latest version is Black Magic Handicapper 2.0 called ValueCapper. Whether you're interested in software or not, I did a course on value capping and how it's very different than handicapping. If you haven't seen it, please watch it. Only the last video is really about the software, but the principles of value capping. You can get it at valuecapper.com. It's free. You get a video every couple of days by email. I cover the value capping framework, value capping versus handicapping, the 5x5 formula. And for those of you who are interested, there's software and training and all of that. But listen, those first 3 videos where we talk about how the game has changed will I think really help you. In a nutshell, value capping doesn't look, of course you have to have winners, but that's not the whole focus of it, because with all the tools that we have, everyone's got now with the proliferation of so much good information, finding the good horses is pretty easy. What Value Capper does is it looks it incorporates the principles of value capping, which is to find horses you like that the public shouldn't, preferably running against vulnerable favorites. Then, of course, you got to wait for your price and get a felt sense of the bet making you. Now, before we get into the races, a few important points. This is not a touting video. I don't tout horses because my purpose is not picking horses because, oh boy, he won or oh boy, he lost. It's not very useful. Rather, it's to demonstrate the principles of value capping on real live races that, by the way, have not run yet. Okay? And speaking of not running yet, I'm making this video without scratches or weather changes, so won't know what's happening. And I want to remind you that software and numbers and whatever tools you use are just that. They are tools. And as you know, a tool is as good as the person using it. Okay? You can be really skilled and really not so skilled. And lastly, value investment potentials, which is what I call, potential value investment bet. They're price dependent. In other words, if there's no adequate price, there's no bet. Now, if those of you remember a couple of weeks ago in the Florida Derby, Value Capper had the 2 horses 1-2. It finished 7-8. And Bodeman finished second at 70-1. It triggered off an exacta that paid $514 for 2. And, I showed you a ticket last week of a little $5 exacta box that came back $1,200. And then, woohoo, that's, oh boy, and if I were a different kind of person, I would say, oh yeah, this happens all the time. It doesn't happen all the time. Most races are more like the races I showed you last week. I mean, the Bluegrass Stakes. And what I said was, hey, I think they've got the right horses. They've got Win Vekoma, and then there's a gap down. In fact, this is the actual slide that I use on that last video. And then maybe some like it Hot Brown, if he's 15-1, didn't get the price. I pointed out Signal Man in the video. You can go back and watch it. And you know what? Vekoma and Win finished 1-2. Big deal. 8-5 or 7-5 over 7-2, 3-1. Some like it Hot Brown. I didn't think it was a good enough bet at 10-1. Signal Man got in there. There's no prices, no price, no bet. So no ticket. And then stuff like this happens in the Wood Memorial. Tacitus looked pretty good to me. I didn't have him very high up on my line. I was looking for perhaps an over-deliver or a Final Jeopardy to maybe upset the race. I thought there might be prices there. As it turned out, Final Jeopardy didn't go off at a high enough price. Over-deliver did at 30-1, and I bet him gladly. And look, not everyone's going to show you that. The colt finished dead last, beaten by 40 lengths. And Tacitus, and Haikal, and the kind of obvious horses. I didn't see Tax in the race, and ran a good race, finished second. But you see, 3 of the 4 betting favorites finished 1, 2, 3. And this is not an excuse. This is just what happened. Those of you who watched the race, the 11-horse Jovia came over and, squeezed the 5. And, the 6 actually wound up taking up, clipping heels. I mean, it completely lost all chance in the race. Am I saying, I would have won it? No, I don't. I just know it was a decent bet at 30-1. I can't control a horse like Jovia, who got DQ'd, went off at 52-1 and got DQ'd from 7th. And that's horse racing. That's why you insist on price. Finally, and the race that I thought, the Santa Anita Derby, was the most formful, but I agreed with the public. I had Nolo Contesto, Instagram, Roadster, and Game Winner, who was going to be the prohibitive favorite, maybe Synthesis. I was very surprised that Nolo Contesto was let off at 16-1, and true to its name, it did not contest in the race. Well, it did for a little while, and then it just kind of gave up the ghost, and the obvious horses finished 1, 2, Roadster, and Game Winner. So there's not always juicy tickets at the end of this value capping process. A lot of races are just pass races. Speaking of which, here is this year's, the 2019 Lexington Stakes, to be run at Keeneland as their 9th race on Saturday, April 13th. Now, this is the way ValueCapper presents the race. And those of you familiar with ValueCapper will know. Those of you who aren't, let me take you through the salient points. Once again, I've got a colt with a gap on the top. It happens to be the morning line favorite. The 4, I'm going to say horse instead of colt, bear with me. The 4-horse, Another Twist of Fate. Okay. And then there's a gap down to Shang, which is the fulcrum in the race. And then there are 3 kind of longer prices, Owendale, Nixco, and Sueño. Then there are the other ones. I've got that red square around Harvey Wallbanger's second morning line favorite, 7-2. This was the wise guy horse in the last race it ran, and it ran up the track. I've got him running up the track again. Could upset, of course. There's some interesting pace situations in both the Lexington and the Arkansas Derby. From a positional point of view, the 9, Zendon, wants to have the lead positionally. From a velocity coupled with that position, it's going to be a highly pressured race. And there's a little warning that Another Twist of Fate, if the pressure does develop, it could be in trouble. Now, so when there is a conflict like that, I like to look at the track profile. These are simply compiled from the results charts. If I look at Keeneland and a mile and 16th, well, the last couple of races went fairly early in the 52% range. But the races past that, and again, these are older races going back to last October, they have a very late expenditure of energy. So not only is my projection of the race conflicted, the track profile is a bit conflicted. Here's the way ValueCapper using acupressure. Here's the way it projects the race, and you see there are 5 horses that are going at it, and good Lord, I don't know which way this race is going to go. If we look at the colts one at a time, Another Twist of Fate, nothing much bad to say about this this colt. Won 3 races in a row, broke its maiden, won its allowance non-winners, won the El Camino at Golden Gate, and finished second in the Sunland Derby. The expenditure looks fine. The only knock that I would say I would have it fought a little bit hard in the Sunland Derby. Don't blame it. I mean, but that was a hard-fought stretch battle. Shang, the fulcrum in the race, it expended its energy pretty late in its first and third starts. It's won 4 of its 5 lifetime races. The only mar on its record was trying its maiden for the first time as a first-time starter. Now, here's another. You know, when you talk about horse you kind of like, well, this is a Louisiana bred running in a graded stakes. So nothing against Louisiana breds. There are some, there've been some champions, right? But I'm gonna need a price to bet this. Plus, I've got another twist of fate. There's a big gap above that. Now coming down to third on my line is Owendale. This is an interesting horse as well. Took it 3 times to break its maiden. Then it got laid off from last October to last December and still managed a very good second. So the colt knows it can run well after a layoff. I guess this trainer can do fairly well after the layoff. Again, in the percentage early, it's right. The colt has been working out very well. A couple of bullet works where it was, first out of 31 horses, and on March 23rd, first out of 21 horses. So this could be a contender, but remember, the numbers just aren't as strong as another twist of fate, and and it is on a layoff. Nick's Go is a fascinating colt on one level. I mean, its last 2 finishes were abysmal, 5x13 and 7x51. And then you look back, and last October, this colt won, as a 2-year-old, won the Breeders' Futurity, just a $500,000 grade 1 at 70-1. Then it has the nerve to go into the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, where it finished second at 40-1. Good Lord. Now, it's pretty early on its energy expenditure for this track and so forth. And the software had to go way back to its 2-year-old a year because its 2 races as a 3-year-old were not very good at all. So I don't have horses I'm in love with so far, except for the top horse, which is going to be the morning line favorites. There's not going to be any price there. Sueño, nothing wrong with this one. Broke its maiden in a high-priced maiden claimer at Del Mar last August. Came back, won the Gold Rush, and then ran a couple of seconds in a third. Yeah, good horse. Finished third in the Louisiana Derby. Okay, fine. So what do you do with this? Now remember, the way the race is projected might come up as a lot of pressure, but from a positional point of view, it's early. From looking at the track profile, the couple of latest races have gone early. All the others have gone late. It's extremely confusing. What I will do with a race like this, if this were, normal, everyday, claiming race at Aqueduct or Prairie Meadows or something, I'd probably pass this. I think there might be some enthusiastic amateur money out there, so I'd look at the prices. That big red arrow is pointing to the ValueCapper price column, and that's a target odds, if you will. That takes into account a lot of different factors to calculate what kind of percentage of overlay from my odds line, the ValueCapper odds line, would be acceptable. So, look, another twist of fate's never going to be 7-1. Shang, I don't think that horse is going to be 11-1. And then I'm down into fairy tale land with, and by that I mean fairy tale land. I mean I've got long shots that have some decent numbers, but they've got flaws. Owendale's got is off a layoff, working bullets and all of that. Nick's Go, I don't know what to do with that colt. And then you got the mystery of Harvey Wallbanger. Still don't understand that colt, and I won't. So what do you do? What I do? I'm looking at the board. I'm not making a primary bet on this unless they fall asleep and they give me 7-8-1 on another twist of fate. It's not going to happen, right? Would I take Shang at 12-1? Sure. Would I take Owendale and Nick's Go? I'd really need to get 25-30-1 on either of those colts. But this is the kind of run of the not a run-of-the-mill race. It's a very good race, but the situation where, first of all, I agree with the public. So not a horse I like that the public shouldn't. Public should like this horse, Another Twist of Fate. I don't really see a huge flaw in it, and I don't have horses I like that other than you can look. Value is different than price. If all you want is price, just go and bet the long shots and have fun and forget about the analysis. But this analysis shows a very confusing race. I'm not finding a primary bet here. I would take an action shot looking for prices among Shang, Owendale, and Nixco. Shang at 12-15 to 1, Owendale, Nixco 25-30 to 1 in that stratospheric, and not as a main bet. And so that's the value capping process. Is basically a pass race for me. And sorry, I can't make the races come up. And what am I supposed to do? Be one of these experts that you hear, the talking heads? And I love them. Look, they know a lot about it. And they know much more about the trainers and the ins and outs and the inside baseball on all of this than I do. All I know is I think Another Twist of Fate is going to, be very tough in this race because, so what? It's 2 to 1. Let's go. I'm interested in making money. I'm not interested in picking winners. There's a difference, by the way. You can pick a lot of winners and not make a lot of money. Tell you that story at some point. In fact, if you watch the ValueCapper Revolution basic training course at ValueCapper.com, I'll tell you that story. Let's look now at the Arkansas Derby to be run. It's the 11th race at Oaklawn Park on this coming Saturday, April 13th. And once again, we've got a horse right on top, Improbable. 8-5 morning line with a gap over the next 3 horses, and then there's a gap down to 2 other horses. Once again, I'm agreeing with the public. Yeah, the morning line favorite, the contention favorite, that is right on top with a gap. Not only that, in that other cluster, there is Omaha Beach. I think they're going to be very close co-favorites. 1-2, Omaha Beach, who just beat a little colt called, what was its name? Yeah, Game Winner. I mean, those are serious. Those are serious colts. And once again, I've got a conflict between how the race projects positionally as opposed to position with velocity. So what do? Let's look. The track profile says, no, it looks like it tends a little late from the expenditure of energy, including last year's Arkansas Derby, which ran on April 14th of 2018. But you need to be fairly close. So it's telling us the same thing as the way the race projects. It looks like Gray Attempt, Galilean, and so forth may be vying for the lead. Omaha Beach, it looks like it may make a move. I'm not sure where Improbable is going to be in this scenario, but it's got good overall pace numbers. And if you look at Improbable, it's got 2 races where it expended late. The top 2 races were expended early. You see the 50 and change, that's late. The 52 and change, fairly early. It's got 4 lifetime starts. Bob Baffert managed to get 3 wins out of that. It just came up a little short in one of the Rebels. The Rebel was split into two races this year. So, they're putting blinkers on, and that means, I don't know what that means. It means it's going to have blinkers on. And it also means it's the 8-5 morning line favorite, and everyone's going to bet it because it's got good final time numbers. And then what I think is going to be the co-favorite. Oh, let's go back to Improbable. If I were really nitpicking, this colt fought tooth and nail down the stretch. May have taken a bit out of it. Okay, but remember, if a horse is that good with that good of numbers, even with a little bit out of it, maybe it won't win as easily as it, quote unquote, should based on its numbers, but it could still win. And Omaha Beach took a little while to break its maiden for Richard Mandela. I mean, it broke it on its 5th attempt after finishing, second on the turf and third on the turf a couple of times. And it had 3 seconds in a row. And then, I don't know, maybe it got frisky in the slop and just blew away the maiden field. And as I said, beat Game Winner in the other leg of the Rebels, the Rebel Grade 2 race. those two are going to dominate the betting. Let's just face it. Now, I've got two other colts in my top four. And once again, I'm looking for a horse I quote-unquote like. Now, Galilean, if I look at its energy percentages and all, it's fine. It's got a couple of earlies, some lates. It looks like it could come off the pace a little bit as it did in the Cal Cup Derby at Santa Anita on February 18th. It knows how to wire a field, come close and press a little bit. I've got no problems with that. It finished third in that leg of the Rebel. And we'll just go back here and you'll see where the indication of that is to Improbable. So in other words, Improbable won that race, finished second in that race by a neck, and Galilean finished just a couple of lengths behind Improbable. If there is a huge disparity in the odds, and if they completely forget about Galilean, I take a shot with it, even though it's a California bred. Again, casting no aspersions against California breds. There've been some champions, right? And it did run, as I said, a couple of lengths away from Galilean, so it's going to be away from Improbable. So it's going to be a price issue. Then there's this real long shot, Tikvin Flu. Only 3 lifetime races. It won its first shot at Maiden. Then ran a third by 2. Then in the Gotham, it just didn't really run very well. I don't know what to say. It's got 2 good numbers that are very competitive in the field, but its recent form in that its last race, not so good. So once again, what do? I've got Improbable atop with a gap, who had a bit of a hard race. This is not a horse I like that the public shouldn't. Public should. Okay. If I look down at Omaha Beach, I've also got a horse with a little tough race and not very great numbers. If I'm looking for potential value, I'm looking at Galilean and Tikvin Flu. Galilean, who just ran a couple of lengths back of Improbable. Again, I think the 1 and the 3, Improbable and Omaha Beach, will be dominating the betting. If I can get 15-1 on Galilean, I would take it. Tikvin Flu, I'm a little more. I don't know what that colt's going to do, but I would look for it at 20-1. This is a race I'm not sure I want to bet against Improbable and Omaha Beach. I don't think they're unbeatable. I think they both have slight flaws. Would I make this a prime bet? Only because I don't really feel like, this one, on either Galilean, basically because of the company that it ran, in which it ran. Tikvin Flu, not sure what to do with that last race. Again, price will answer those questions. So basically, best horse in the race, Improbable, Omaha Beach, who just beat game winner. Yeah, a good colt. There may be some value on the 7 Galilean and the 4 Tikvin Flu. And if there is, again, Galilean at 15-1, Tikvin Flu at 20-25-1, I would take a secondary bet. Again, I'm not going to apologize. This is real life. Not every race comes up like that Florida Derby and a $514 exacta, and you think about, this is easy. How long has this been going on? Well, this is where it takes patience and discipline. You wait for your prices. You do all this analysis, and you come up and you say, well, I've got a horse that the public is going to like as well. There's no profit to be made. There's no value there. I would remind you once more that on big days, good value opportunities can often appear in the undercards. On my cursory look, again, I'm making this on Thursday before the races. I've got to get this up so you can watch it in time for the race. Didn't see very much at either Oaklawn or Keeneland in the undercards, but look there for some good value, because there's some, as I said, on the bigger days, there can be some real amateur money, especially at those tracks, and they will just overbet a poor favorite and leave some good value bets on the board. Well, that's it for this edition of the 2019 Arkansas Derby Lexington Stakes Value Capping Rant. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it more than who do you like. I'd like to thank you so much for spending this time with me. Remember, value cap. Find horses you like that the public shouldn't. Try to bet against vulnerable favorites. Wait for your price, and most of all, let the bet make you. I'll see you soon.